Hello?
Hello? Who am I speaking with?
Who are you trying to reach?
Who is this?
I think you have the wrong number.
Sorry.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Bomb Squad. And if you haven't, check out the new short that's on my short page. It's on my YouTube page, How to Films. It's about Scream, that movie you just saw this weekend. Do you want to be like, hey, I'd like to see that with way lower production quality? Well, you're in luck because you can go see that right now on my page. So, welcome to the Bomb Squad. We got another William pick today. And so today we're talking about M2M, Mission to Mars, the 2000 film by Brian De Palma. What? Starring Tim Robbins. Starring Tim Robbins? I feel like this was made so close after Shawshank that they're like, yeah, Tim Robbins is probably the biggest star in this.
I mean,
Starring
it's like 6 years. 6 years.
starring Gary Sinise and Don Cheadle. We'll talk about it. I have a lot to say about these actors.
I do too, actually.
And also, it has like a really good cast. Connie and Nelson plays another one. Jerry O'Connell is surprisingly in this movie.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a mean thing to say, but I didn't expect it.
I mean, he's not an astronaut, you know.
Yeah. And Josh, tell us what this movie's about. Tell us what Mission to Mars is about.
They have to take a mission to Mars. That is essentially the plot.
Yeah.
Perfectamundo. So yeah, essentially what happens is they're going to Mars. Don Cheadle and all his buddies are up there, and everyone else is in a space station. And then Don Cheadle gets attacked by wind and dirt tunnel, like it's like a tornado, but it's sideways. And then they don't know what happened to him, so they decide to plan a rescue mission. And it's kind of all the logistical problems with planning a rescue mission, and then trying to figure out what happened to Don Cheadle. Also, the thing I wanted to say about this is that I haven't seen Don Cheadle in a real movie in like 10 years.
Yeah.
So to like watch him in this one and be like, oh yeah, that's right. He's a really good actor. I completely forgot about that. And not to say that he doesn't like try in the Marvel movies, but he doesn't have a lot to do in the Marvel movies. Where in this movie, like in the first scene, they're like there's like a party where they're getting ready to like go to Mars, and he has to show so much emotion because he's like excited to go to Mars, but then his kid doesn't want to go, doesn't want him to go, so he's trying to comfort his kid without like getting too sad because he's also gonna like miss his family. And so I was like, oh yeah, Don Cheadle is a great actor. Good job. But yeah, what did you guys think of this película?
Well, I mean, so I wanted to watch this movie because I used to watch it a lot as a kid. Like I had it on DVD, and I just hadn't remembered like why I liked it so much. And I always see it mentioned online about like how fucking terrible it is, and so I really wanted to rewatch it and just see. And it was like really fun watching it again, just because like I think it was kind of like my first like sci-fi that was like sort of a stepping stone towards like 2001 in a way. And so it was like way lesser than that movie and all that kind of stuff, but like it had enough like blood and violence to like get young me into that sphere.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly just PG, but someone gets like ripped into pieces, which I thought was fucking so badass.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of problems with it. I mean, it's like fucking, it kind of doesn't make any sense. And like the last part, like the ending is like just the most like I want to cut my dick off right now like scene ever. And I don't know, I had a fun time watching it, but I see why everybody kind of wrecks on it. But formatively, it was important to me as a child. Weirdly
I remember watching it as a kid, and I didn't like it. I really like. There's like a scene later, which we'll probably talk about with Tim Robbins, that I really liked.
Yeah,
but that's like the only scene I remembered. I didn't remember anything else. And so watching it again, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I did the first time. Like it's a little weird because we kind of talked about this last week when we talked about Babylon, but it's this thing where it's kind of like you have two types. Like if you're making like a fantastical movie, you have two types. Like you have Gravity on one end, and you have like Mission to Mars on the other end. Where Gravity is trying to show you how scary space is, but it's not like realistic in any way because she's like using the fire extinguisher to like shoot across space and stuff,
Right. It's
and
like
like
Wally
none of
style.
the satellites match up really in real life. But he doesn't care. He's trying to show you how scary space is, and so he's trying to get that across. Where Mission to Mars, like in the other end, where it's like it wants to be as realistic as possible, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
telling a fantastical story.
There's
And
some crazy stuff that happens. Like
yeah,
it's, but I know what you're saying for sure.
but
It
like
feels
yeah,
natural.
on our end, like on the human end, it's not like they're not like they're not like flying through the sky or like grabbing satellites out of the
Right.
thing. And so normally I don't like these type of movies because of like I'm always like, well, just have the alien eat someone. I don't know, but it wasn't as bad. Like I think the acting really elevates it a lot more because like Gary
Yeah.
Sinise, Tim Robbins,
There's a lot of
Don
chemistry going
Cheadle,
on.
even Jerry O'Connell. You're like, oh yeah, he's a good actor. He just kind of looks like Jerry O'Connell, so I understand why they don't give him roles.
I think
Right.
this. Well, I mean, it's tricky to me because I do agree. There's a lot of really good actors in this, and no one's doing a bad job. But I think this movie made me realize I do not care about like astronauts.
Okay.
It's like astronaut films. It's like, oh no, it needs to be like I love 2001, and I saw it way before this, obviously. Um, and I was trying to think of like, do I even like any other astronaut films? Obviously 2001, Ad Astra, good movie. I was
Yeah.
like, man, even though this is pretty well made, well, the ending's a little whatever, but you know what I mean. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just not there. Although there are some great scenes in it.
Yeah.
Tim Robbins' big scene is kind of the standout.
Yeah.
Like some of the hard sci-fi stuff where they do like the kind of the technical stuff like that. Um, it was like impressive. Like they do the rotating, like that they're on the station and he's jogging on
Oh
it, and then
yeah.
there's a bunch of people in the background, and I was like, oh, that's such like good camera work. I
Yeah.
almost wish the movie was more of this. Better than The Martian. Hated The Martian. So
I don't really remember a lot from The Martian.
See, that's funny that you mentioned Ad Astra because like that line I said earlier with Gravity and Mission to Mars, I feel like Ad Astra's in the middle because I feel like all the stuff in there was like kind of crazy, but they treated it as if like it was just normal, and I was always kind of bored with their reaction. Like thinking back about that movie, I was like, hey, I should have liked everything about this movie, like space ape, space pirates,
Yeah.
see,
crazy guy, and
like
I
in
just
Ad,
like
he's
I
on a
can't
journey
remember.
in
Yeah.
Ad
Yeah.
Astra. You know, it's like I don't like it when the movie is the how do we deal with being on a space station or spaceship like part. I like it when it's like that's a conveyance to other stuff, like The Expanse or something like that. I don't know.
Like
Yeah.
when it's just the
So
setting as opposed to it being about the plot involving like
right, very like Apollo 13. I'm like, I appreciate it's well made, but not for me, thanks. And a
Well,
lot
see,
of this movie was like that.
Apollo
yeah.
13 is different because it's real. Like they can't add space apes to Apollo 13.
That would have been good if they did, though.
It would have been cool, but and then it is funny because like so much the beginning of this movie almost feels like the beginning of Apollo 13 to the point where I think they use the same house.
Yeah, it's all the trappings are there. Yeah.
Yeah, like they have the guy who doesn't get to join the mission. They have the like cocky
Yeah.
guy who's gonna get sick. They're like doing a house party. It's like, do astronauts not have indoor parties? How come every astronaut has an outdoor party?
Because they spend
But
so much
like,
time
and it's
inside, man, years at a
yeah,
time.
exactly. And I do kind of feel like they were trying to like emulate that kind of feel. But to me, it's kind of like if the whole thing is fake, why don't we make it a little bit more fantastical on that on your end, you know?
Yeah.
But see, like, but there is the part, and I think it's the best scene where are we gonna just spoil it? Because why not? No
Well,
one's
let's
gonna see
get
this.
there first. Because you have
Okay.
Yeah.
like there's a scene they cut to them in the space station and they get hit by like or they decide to like take off. And the scene where they get attacked by the wind tornado, that's like a cool scene too, because it
Yeah.
like
That seems
Brian
so.
De Palma like sets the stage and it's all quiet, you know?
Yeah. And when they show Connie Nielsen, she's like isolated in like that one area, and it's like
Hmm.
something bad's gonna happen to her when they show her. But
Yeah.
like something with like the with like what were we just talking about? Oh yeah, like the fantastical element. Like, I mean, this I feel like this movie definitely was trying to go for like that kind of like 70s sci-fi time, like Rendezvous with Rama kind of thing, or like Solaris, like where it's like
Right.
there's just enough fantastic because like shit in the 70s like wasn't that crazy yet, I guess. Maybe something like that. But even though this was made way after that, I feel like that's kind of like where the story was like trying to go. Was like it was trying to stay in like that kind of, I don't know, weird era of sci-fi where like things were trying to like discuss an idea and there was like a small element with astronauts that was like sort of interesting. So it's like I feel like you know what I'm talking about. Have you ever read those kind of
Yeah.
books? Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they try and keep it just like so real besides like one crazy thing. And I can see how that's sort of boring, especially to like today's taste.
Well, and I
But
think
Yeah.
it's like
I
that thing
get
where
it.
Solaris kind of works because we stick with that one guy, you know, even when he's around other people in both versions. And in this one, there's not a like Gary Sinise is kind of the main character, but like
Yeah, he
I
has
I
more fun.
related more to Tim Robbins, you know.
Yeah, he's just way more fun in this movie
Yeah.
for sure. Gary Sinise
Well,
is kind of
it's because Gary
he's not really a
Sinise
lead
is like
man.
the sad dead wife guy, you know,
Yeah,
and
Well,
it's very much his like character.
it's
yeah,
funny because they're in the space station and like the chief, because they're like, we got to go rescue Don Cheadle, and then the chief is like, we can't, and definitely you can't because you're like mentally unhinged, and he's
yeah.
like, I'm not. But then it immediately cuts to him watching like a replay of his wedding with everyone saying, I was
I
like, oh
know.
no, he definitely shouldn't go. This guy's gonna murder all of you within a week. You know?
It
And that's
is funny
also
we watched the this and Strange Days kind of back to back because they both had the like I'm missing the love of my life, and it's always like the nice footage of them like dancing together and like playing around, and it's like, yeah, that's the standard. My
yeah.
wife is gone, and I'm very
And we'll
depressed now.
3 days.
and we'll eventually talk about the end, but the end made me laugh a little bit.
Yeah, the end was fucked up.
It had the opposite
I
effect.
hated it so
But
bad.
yeah, so and I think that it would have really helped, even if it was Gary Sinise, even though he has a kind of generic backstory. Apparently, you can't be an astronaut unless you have at least one dead close relative.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
and so I just think they should have honed it in a little bit more, so we're following someone's perspective instead of the entire team. But I
Yeah.
guess with the story they're telling, they couldn't because like I don't know and it's funny because if you had followed any of them, like even if you had followed Don Cheadle, if you had followed Tim Robbins, it would have been interesting just because they all have something interesting, but putting them together, you're like,
I
oh,
know.
there's not enough.
Don Cheadle was definitely his character had the most meat for sure. Like Gary Sinise,
Mhm.
like whenever he watches those movies, that's like the only time he's like upset.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't seem like that put out by like not being chosen for this mission. Like he just kind of is like the most sad he ever is that we see is like, huh. Like
Mhm.
It's very and see,
not
I think,
sad.
and this to me is like the big thing in The Martian too. It's where they're kind of, I think they're trying to be like, oh, like even if he's depressed or whatever, his mind is so technical and so focused, like it's
Right.
not going to show. And The Martian's kind of like that too, where it's like he's never really like
He's always
having a
trying to have a plan.
breakdown, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that like an astronaut would be like autistic like this, but at the
Right.
same time, it's not necessarily interesting to watch. So
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I think that's where this movie really comes unbalanced for
Like
sure.
think about like Sunshine, how angry and yelling everyone was at each other in that
Yeah,
movie. Huh.
same.
Right.
Sunshine
That
as
was
well.
good. Yeah.
And
That's a good
see,
space movie.
yeah,
Goddamn. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like because they once they go on the mission, the first thing that happens is that like they get hit with an asteroid, and then it cuts a hole through their roof, and then they're like, "Oh, we got to shut this down in 4 minutes." But then like you see them put on their spacesuit, they go outside, and I was like,
Right.
"Didn't you guys only have 4 minutes?" And also, I don't know what you're trying to do or what's gonna happen. Like I don't know what half of the
I
things you're
know.
saying are, so I
It's like
don't
it
know
takes
how worried to be. You know?
yeah, it's like a little bitty thing, and then Tim Robbins like shoots the hole with like a little gun.
Yeah.
It seems like it's fine, and then it's not fine, and then it's like
Why
some
don't
other stuff happens that I'm a little unclear.
Yeah.
So
Why
that's
don't they
not
build the
great.
whole spaceship out of that gun?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a
But
Jerry
then,
Seinfeld level joke if Mission to Mars was real. They got the gun to fix the spaceship. Why don't you just build the whole spaceship out of the gun?
what's the deal? I don't know. With NASA food.
And then he's like, "Hey, Kramer, the crowd's pretty wild. Don't let them get to you."
let's, let's not go down that road. The no, so they're trying to fix this, and then I think this is the big scene because Tim Robbins overshoots. Like he's
Yes,
trying to
because they
like
have to leave because the ship is too damaged. So they have to. They're trying to get onto another ship, but they can't with their ship because it's too damaged. So they have to like physically leave and just grab it individually. And then they don't. They're not going to make. And that's like the cool thing. It also happens in gravity where it's like in space. Once you start going, like if you start going and I'm following you, I'm never going to catch up to you because we're going at exactly the same space and there's no wind or anything to stop us. And so that's always the most interesting thing to me. And this does a good job of kind of like explaining that and showing how that could be terrible. And so like Tim Robbins has to try to grab it and he manages to hook up the team, but he's not able to grab it. And so he ends up floating off. And then they have to like figure out if they can go get him, how can they go get him? And then like they're so close to the atmosphere that they don't have that much time because he's literally about to like burn up, you know?
yeah, and like they conceit that like even though it seems like he's still pretty close and he's just slowly drifting, it's like oh no, no one would have enough fuel to get him and then get back.
Right.
So like that is horrifying, you know, like that's like such a like okay, you're using like the hard science of like this to show like how like terrible that would be in real life, you know. So
Right.
that's a good scene. Yeah.
I think that was like probably the first time I ever like saw stuff like that was this movie. Like I never like really seen like space being like that dangerous before, except for like Star Wars stuff like that.
Right, and that's very like fantastical. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, so you
Yeah.
saw this before 2001, right?
right. This was like my
Okay.
first kind of like hard sci-fi movie that I ever kind of like got into.
That tracks.
Yeah, it might also have been mine. Like the first movie where, like, cause Star Wars has space, but they don't ever really treat it like it's like they don't ever. I don't think anyone in Star Wars ever like worries about oxygen when they leave.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Or
always wear
even
masks
Star
for
Trek,
everything.
like they don't really ever deal with that part. Like if they wear a suit, it's only like you never see them like struggling with like time or anything. They just kind of wear a suit and go out there.
Right. Yeah. Time travel doesn't. They don't have any of the paradoxes.
Yeah.
Like, all that shit.
So yeah, this might have been the first, and so yeah, watching that and that, I think that part is cool, and I think like it's kind of weird because gravity does all this, and it kind of puts you in the suit, so to speak, of the astronaut. But this one kind of gives it, and you kind of wish there was a little bit more of it, you know.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
again,
I
it's
wasn't
like
ever
so
sure if it was supposed to
straightforward.
be- What were you gonna say?
Oh, that it's just so straightforward. It'd be hard to like add more stuff.
Right, and they never chose if they wanted it to be about the horrors of space or if they wanted it to be about like it definitely is trying to copy 2001 like almost completely,
Yeah.
but it's like that movie really somehow held everything in balance. But like this one just felt like really imbalanced. Like I didn't know if it was like a character piece or if it was like a thriller or you know philosophical piece about like the nature of humanity. Like it didn't really go far enough into like
It's almost like a gateway to like interesting ideas that get better explored in other films. You know,
Yeah.
it's like these are all really cool ideas, but you're not really developing them. They're just all kind of there, you know.
right. It's like someone who
Right.
like doesn't really love sci-fi made and is a good director made like
So,
sci-fi.
you'd almost need someone to watch this who was not really into space movies, but they're like, I want to start, and you're like, well, start here.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, yeah.
Galaxy, my friend. Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect way to put this movie. It's like it has the pastiche, all the pieces there, but it's not really the most cohesive thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that it's kind of funny watching De Palma be so restrained. Like he doesn't really give a lot of his like it's pretty straightforward. Even the camera work is a little bit until the end. The camera work is very like not super De Palma-y.
Yeah, it's not very dramatic. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
regular.
Do you think it's because he was out of his element, so he was
Maybe
Could have been,
playing
yeah.
it safe?
because does De Palma has De Palma done other sci-fi, William?
I don't think so. This is the one that I know of.
At least not to this extent. Like
Yeah.
you know.
It's almost like you know that movie Clint Eastwood directed where Matt Damon can talk to your dead relatives if he touches you.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I remember
Um,
that movie.
and you get the sense of that movie where it's like, oh, Clint Eastwood doesn't really buy in on this. You know, like it almost feels like Brian De Palma's like, oh, this is kind of bullshit, but I'll direct
Yeah.
it, you know, but I'm not fully invested in this. I don't know. There is a weird kind of like standoffishness to it, to the directing.
Totally.
See,
Yeah.
I kind of think it's more that he's like, oh no, we don't have to be crazy. Like, look at how beautiful space is. They're gonna love this very straightforward, nothing shot of like the spaceship floating in the air. And it's like, we don't. We've seen it so many times, De Palma. Watch another space movie.
But here it is. Once
Yeah.
again.
Looking at
Yeah.
his thing, I think the other sci-fi movie that he had done before this, and he hasn't done any after, is like the most sci-fi he does is Mission Impossible, which like the mask and stuff is sci-fi, but it's still very grounded in reality. Especially that first Mission Impossible.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like techno thriller.
Yeah. So yeah, I do feel there's a little bit of hesitation on De Palma's part, and it's a little bit of like he doesn't want to outshine the space, but it's like, no, man, you got to do this.
Right. We've seen this before.
Yeah, and like it even like there's like there's so they get caught, and then Tim Robbins like catches it, or he doesn't catch it, and so he's floating away, and they realize that they can't stop him, but his wife is also on the team. And she's like, I'm not going to leave you. Like, it doesn't matter. And so they try one more attempt and it doesn't work. And so she's going to try another attempt. But if she goes any further, she's going to run out of gas. So Tim Robbins, like, takes off his mask to, like, end the debate, essentially. And he's going to kill himself. And it's like, that scene is the coolest scene in the movie. But it's also, every scene is, like, a wide or, like, a close-up. You know, it's not, there's not, like, you don't see, like, you could have easily like flipped the camera and shown what Tim Robbins is looking at, shown what she's looking at, but there's not a lot of VOP shots in this scene, and so it's like it doesn't really make the scene worse because it is a cool scene, but there are ways that they could have made it better. I feel.
Yeah, like you think they were
You get
focusing
it.
too much on like people's faces, or
I think like they could have just shot it like a little bit more dramatic, you know, like gotten closer to his face, you know, shown his POV to show how like he's falling away. Like they could have like whenever you cut to him, it's kind of like this, but they could have even like cut to him so you see more of the planet, so you see how close he's getting, you know, or even have the planet like here and you just see him like slowly falling. Ooh.
oh yeah,
Like there was just so many shots that they could have done that they didn't really do for some reason.
gotcha.
And it's like again, like you know, I hate to keep harping on Gravity, but like Gravity, when she's like the preview of Gravity is just all her POV as she's trying to grab shit, and that like blew people away because they hadn't seen this kind of side of view from like an astronaut's point of view, you know.
yeah, totally.
And I feel like De
Every
Palma
POV
could have
is-
done that. Like he's kind of famous for POV shots. What the fuck, De Palma?
Yeah, it felt like a very generic kind of movie. Like it could have been made by anybody. Like,
Yeah,
that's why it's so funny that it's De Palma because
I
like
know.
even thinking back on it from like my memories, I was like, it's not very like fucked up. Like it's not crazy.
Yeah,
But the few fucked up parts are good. You know, that's like, it's
know.
like, oh, you really should have gone in on that, you know?
Yeah,
But-
made this a fucking hard R.
yeah.
A hard PG. It's the hardest PG you've ever seen.
Yeah. And then they do this thing that a lot of space movies or astronaut movies do, where like after that they kind of get to the planet, and once they get to the planet, there's not a lot of like other things that happen, like in terms of space thing. They just kind of figure it out and then they go check it out.
Yeah,
And you're kind of like, you would think that they'd be like, oh, here's like I read the book The Martian, and one of the cool things in The Martian and is that like every time something breaks and he fixes it, something else breaks and he has to fix that, and then something else breaks, and like every time he does, he's losing resources, and he's losing, you know, and he's like getting more tired, he's getting more hungry because he can't eat. And so it shows like when you're isolated to this point where you can't even like go outside to like take a break, it's gonna weigh on you. And like in this one, they get down to the planet and they find Don Cheadle, and Don Cheadle's like, oh, by the way, we have plants and air in here. It's just like a little summer vacation. It's like, okay, that's
Yeah, it
Kinda
flips
wish
to
there-
the ancient alien mystery is the rest of the film after
I
that.
know. And all the drama's gone. Like there's no danger, nothing bad
Mhm.
happens to them. Spoiler alert.
But
They're made for fun.
like to me though, like that's if you're gonna get into crazy alien stuff, it's like that's your excuse for just a bunch of people to walk into cool rooms and see cool things, and that doesn't really happen,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Even when they figure out the communication, like they figured out so quickly
I know.
somehow that it has this fucking light bulb moment, and like it wasn't even part of a puzzle. Like
Yeah.
just get access to like this treasure trove of barely interesting information from an alien race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, if you want to see a movie that barely touches on aliens for no reason and then makes it bring it back, you got to watch Total Recall, also on Mars. Because that movie, they're like, oh, by the way, there's aliens. And they're like, all right. And then they use it to save the planet for some reason at the end.
Yeah, and it fucking rules.
You know what I
fucking
do
plot
like?
every step of the way.
I do like about the aliens at the end because they show like you meet an alien and see like their ships and stuff. I know you haven't, Andrew, but William, I don't know if you ever played those like 90s Infinity Engine PC games.
No,
But it's like the same bad CGI as those games. Like they're like, oh, and it's so kind of charming and quaint. It's like, oh yeah, all CGI used to look like this, you know. So I like that. It charmed me.
Yeah, I agree. And then whenever the ship leaves, like the actual pyramid, it looked like whenever like Star Fox leaves.
Yeah,
It looked
yeah.
like
It's
Star Fox. It would have been cool. It would have been cool if Pepe showed up and he's like, "We're right behind you, Fox."
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed that.
And see, and it also has the problem that's still to this day where it's like, okay, you have CGI, so you can make whatever creature you want to make. Why do you make the most generic alien of all time?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like
this was before, this was before the alien gold rush, right? So this was good enough at the time, right?
yeah, but even then,
Yeah.
like Predator
I
was
remember
before
not
the
hating it as
alien.
a kid. I remember thinking like it was fine. But I was
Yeah,
also a
maybe
kid.
it's because I've seen that alien a bunch of times now.
Yeah.
And it's that thing where it's like if you look at the alien or the predator and then you compare it to these aliens, it's kind of like, oh.
Well, Predator is like one of the greatest movies of all time. So,
Right.
Well, I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about the creature design.
right, I guess it's like that goes hand in hand. That movie.
Not really. You could have a good creature design without a good movie.
It helped.
I'm trying to think of one. I'm trying to think of one now. What's a good creature design in a bad movie?
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Mars Attacks, but I love the way the Mars.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. That is
The movie's not
I like
bad
that
though.
movie, though.
And on the other hand, I don't really like the way the aliens in ID4 look, but I do like ID4, at least from what I remember.
That's fair.
Or another one is Pitch Black too. I don't really like the Pitch Black aliens. They serve a purpose, but they're not like particularly standout-ish.
They have the kind of shark bodies going. I think that's strong.
Yeah.
I can think of good, like Cloverfield's a good movie with a bad creature design. So I can think of a bunch of examples of the opposite. But
Yeah.
We'll find
Yeah.
one.
It's also
It's the
like,
Mom Squad.
what is Gary Sinise doing? She's still making
God.
movies or what?
I did wonder about that.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen him.
I remember him from this movie, and then I think he was in one called like The Imposter.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in that movie, Being John Malkovich, there's a part where John Malkovich is talking to somebody on the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, there's some crazy shit going on. We should all just get into a bunker. It'll be me. We can get you. We can get Gary Sinise." And it was just like this, like such random callback to like a respected but like lower tier actor. I don't know how else to put it. That's kind of fucked up to say, but I always thought Gary Sinise was like this guy who was like, I don't know, famous but just fucking not famous. Like
Yeah.
Lieutenant Dan, Mission to Mars.
Yeah, you'd recognize him on the street, but I bet a bunch of people like, wait, what was he in? Yeah.
He's also in Apollo 13, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he might be.
Yeah,
No, he
that doesn't
definitely
help.
is.
That
That's-
doesn't help the comparisons to Apollo 13. Come on, De Palma. You're just cheating at this point.
He's got an astronaut's face, That's-
It's like if Peter Jackson hired. It's like when Spielberg, like, originally he wanted Harrison Ford to play Dr. Grant in Jurassic Park, and it's like, come on, Steven, that's like the laziest choice ever.
I know.
It's funny you were talking about Don Cheadle earlier because I do agree he's a really good actor when he's like given stuff to do. But I think he's in so many movies where that's not the case. Because I was talking about it with my wife last night, and it's like, how funny is it that you see Iron Man 1 and you're like, oh man, Rhodey has a lot of personality and like he's on in the movie a lot. And then Don Cheadle's like, oh, and then Don Cheadle, you don't get to do any of that. You're in like 2 scenes per movie and you say hello and leave. You
Yeah, you
know?
say like 2 sarcastic jokes.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it's got to be so frustrating that the one time the character was really interesting, you weren't playing him, you know?
Yeah.
He always has 2 jokes, and they're always about how the military's good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the joke in a lot of Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I like it's not super long. It has like a lot of good ideas. It's not like the worst movie ever made, you know?
it's more interesting on like what it's like. I don't know, the stuff it touches on. It's more like interesting for what it might have done versus what it kind of like Strange Days. Honestly, where you're like, there's a lot of really cool stuff here, and
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of potential.
And
yeah,
it's funny because again, like Strange Days, you had the director who could have taken it up to 11 and they decided not. It kind of feels, this is like the worst comparison of all time, but it kind of feels how like when they told Donald Trump to like cool it during the debates to get the moderates, and then like no one like liked him because nobody likes regular person Donald Trump, and that's why
Right.
that's one of the reasons that helped him lose. It's kind of like that, like let him off the chain, not Donald Trump
Mhm.
because
Right.
he does bad
That's
things when he's off the chain, but like Brian De Palma for sure.
right.
You
Yeah.
know,
He's he has the license to.
yeah. It kind of feels like, remember when Oliver Stone did that George W. Bush movie, and you
Oh
could
yeah.
kind of tell that he's almost doing it in a way like, look, guys, I don't have to, like, I
Be a
can
kid.
totally look at this both sides type of thing. I don't have to judge, and
Right.
it's like, okay, but nobody's watching this movie for you not to judge George Bush. What are you doing? Go all
Right.
in.
Fucking
that movie was also made like 2 years after he left office. It's
This
like,
is
no, this is not enough time. You need
This is the
more.
first time I want to hear your insane libertarian ideas.
Yeah. He also did that Trade Center movie that came out like right after 9/11.
Yeah.
So like he's just waiting for tragedies, man.
Yeah.
Pop
It's
it.
like you see
That's so fun. It's
okay.
like the way Asylum makes movies, like just cash it on it right away. It's like,
Yeah.
why does he have Asylum mentality?
But yeah. I don't know. Mission to Mars, guys, you have any last thoughts on it?
I would say if it's the 2000s and you're a kid, give it a shot. Otherwise,
I would
I
say if it sounds at all interesting, watch The Expanse and you will have a better time. Or
I would
2001 and have your life changed. I don't know.
I would say
yeah, don't watch
watch
2001 first. Do
yeah.
not. Do yourself a
Here's
favor.
here's the order. Total Recall, John Carter, Ghosts of Mars, maybe this one, I guess. Doesn't matter. The other ones don't matter. The other ones are all in place for last. But yeah.
And when you're ready, 2001 will be there for you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mention because 2001 they don't go to. Do they go to Mars or Jupiter?
No, oh, you're talking just Mars. Yeah, but I'm
Just
just
talking
saying.
Mars.
Yeah.
But
It's
yeah.
space. No one cares about which planet in space it
Right.
is.
It's just
Definitely watch Total
Yeah.
Recall. If I can tell you anything,
But only the remake. Don't watch the original.
watch the remake and be like, hey, this is
the remake of what?
of Total Recall.
You,
Oh yeah, there was a
Oh,
remake.
I never
Oh,
saw it
wow.
actually.
Really bad.
I did. It was pretty bad. It wasn't great. It wasn't even fun.
So
What are
Yeah.
you looking for?
Thanks, guys. So next week we're gonna have. I don't know if you're gonna watch it next week, but next week we will be doing our 2 favorite plumbers. They're gonna be jumping into a turtle world. So we'll see you guys next week. It's not gonna air next week. It's gonna air like the week after, and you guys are gonna be confused. But it doesn't matter because you'll see it eventually. And also go check out that short. And that's it, guys. We'll see you next time on the Bomb Squad. Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it means a lot.